Maybe I need to go back. Oh, there it goes. All right. All right, so this is chapter 2 in my book. It's going to be a series. I don't know how many it's going to take, but I'm Bill, and I wrote this book, and I guess I'll get started with reading it. Uh, Hopefully it keeps your interest. It's the first time it's never been published, so it's the first time it's ever been put out there. Anybody else? Nobody's ever read it, so it's just me. In fact, I haven't even read it. I wrote it, but I haven't reread it. If that makes sense. All right, so here we go. Hey, what? Joe was furious. That's it, Oscar. I'm going to put some fellows together, and we're going to start knocking some heads. Don't get yourself all hurt because of me, I said. I told him, oh, but I met a girl, too. She saw me afterwards. I didn't have shoes, so she rode on the handlebars while I rode her to the store. You what? I mean, I rode her on the bike. She was on the handlebars. I knew what you meant, Oscar. So, did you get to home base? He asked. Again, I didn't know what he meant by home base. I looked at him funny. Did you score a run? What's that mean? I asked. He broke it down to me. Home base is full-on sex. The run is the same thing. First base is a kiss, and so on. Oh, I get it. I got to first base. She wants to play again tomorrow. I mean, she wants to see me again tomorrow. Well, that's a good thing. So your day wasn't all bad. Just think about it. You're learning about women. You see, women will always cost you some money. Even if you hadn't gotten robbed, you never would have met her. So you paid $235 for your first date, and you didn't even know it at the time. You go, you're a real funny guy, Joe. I'm glad you know so much about women. She actually paid to see me. See these shoes? She helped me buy them. She spent $10 to help me buy them. She even picked them out for me because they wouldn't let me in the store because I was barefoot. Why was you barefoot? I said, because those gangsters didn't want me chasing after them, so they stole my shoes. Them sorry sons of beaches, he said. Don't you worry, Oscar, we're gonna get them suckers someday, said Joe. So I went to the shower and I got cleaned up. The mess hall fed us dinner, and we each had kitchen duty once a week. I didn't mind kitchen duty because we always got cake and ice cream after we got done cleaning. So I didn't mind that I had kitchen duty. Even my head was still pounding, and my heart was aching for Marcella. I couldn't wait till tomorrow. So on the way to the shower room, sorry. So I trained extra hard at the gym the next day. I had 2 rounds with a local kid named Marco. He was a year older than me, and he had been boxing for many years. He was a Golden Gloves champ, and I had tried to box him before a couple times, and he knocked me down both times. One time I almost fell out of the ring. So I kept thinking that the money and those pizza chips that stole it, and my anger must have pumped me up because Marco never landed a single punch. In round 2, I went all out, pretending that Marco was the kid that stole my money, and I went full out and threw about 20 punches that landed. I knocked Marco down, and he didn't get up for a 10 count. Marcella had just walked in to see my victory. I saw her and smiled. You're here earlier, I said. She said, yeah, I brought my swimsuit, and I'm going to go meet you in the pool. Okay, I went and took a shower. On the way to the shower room, I saw Joe walk in, and he was headed to the basketball court. Hey, Joe, what's up? Oh, you know, Oscar, got to get in some hoop. I got a team to beat today. We're having a scrimmage against some all-pros from upstate. I got to represent today. You should get that lady friend of yours and come watch me. We need all the support we can get. Okay, Joe, that sounds like a plan. We got to go get some ice cream first. That's okay, because I'm here real early. It don't start till about 4:30 or 5. Perfect. I got time to go for a quick swim, too. The water was cold at first, but I was used to it. I went up to the diving board and immediately began to show off to Marcella. I did a gainer, and she said that I almost hit my head on the diving board. I watched her as she did a 1.5 with a twist. She landed perfectly. She was way better than I was at diving. It turned out that she was on a diving team, and she was also in gymnastics. Marcella was quite the athlete. We finished our swim, and I took her across the street for Capone's Deli for some ice cream, and we walked back over to the gym in time for Joe's game. Joe was an amazing basketball player. He was about a foot taller than the other players, and he was a great shot. He must have scored about 50 points himself, and he didn't notice the three men in the suits watching him from the back. Look back there, Marcella pointed to them. Recruiters for college, she said. Yeah, it sure looks like it. Joe's team won against the Buffalo Treaders. They were the number one high school basketball team in New York for the last 4 years straight. They were undefeated last year and took the state championship. Joe came over and introduced himself to Marcella. Hi, I'm Joe. You must be Marcella. Oscar said great things about you. Hey, wait a minute. I've heard of you. I think you're Marcella Stevens, the gymnast. She said, yeah, that's me. How did you know? Joe said, oh, I watched gymnastics a lot. I saw you compete last year for the Olympics. You beat Nadia Flamenco from Zambia on the side horse. It's a pleasure to meet you. I had no idea that Marcella was a famous gymnast. Olympics, I said, with astonishment. Oh, she said, I would have told you soon enough. I've been at that since I was 4 years old. It's no big deal, though. Wow, I'm impressed. I said, I feel lucky, too. I kissed her on the cheek. Let's get out of here. I'm hungry. And I'm buying. Let's go get some pizza at Romano's. Joe, you're welcome to come along with us. Look, you look like you're hungry after scoring all them points. You got to be starving. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you, Joe said. So we walked over to Romano's, dodging bums who were begging for change. We stopped while Joe tied his shoes. Excuse me, sir. Do you have any change? This dirty old lady asked. She smelled of booze. Joe emptied his pocket. It was about 67 cents. She grabbed it. She threw it across the alley. She said, is that all you got? Is that all you got, mister? Joe didn't know what to say. Marcella and I just busted out laughing. Come on, mister. Marcella joked, mimicking the old bag. So we got to Romano's, and the guy at the counter must have been having a bad day. What do you want on your pizza? He snapped. I like sausage and mushrooms, but I like it all except anchovies, I told Marcella. Marcella snapped back. We want a supreme pizza with an attitude. A what? He asked. She goes, a supreme pizza with an attitude, she repeated. He changed his demeanor from then on. I said, yes, ma'am. Supreme coming up. It'll be about 15 minutes. Would you like anything to drink with that? Yeah, we'll have 3 Cokes, she said. She paid for the order, and we all sat back in the back of the restaurant at the table. And she was looking out the window, and she noticed all the action going on out there. There was prostitutes working in the corner, drugs being dealt. It was not the greatest part of town. So our pizza was delicious. Marcella was quite the catch, too. I could not believe I had such a great girlfriend. Joe, you're really good at basketball. I saw a couple of recruiters in the stands, I think. You're about to get her a scholarship, she said. Nah, really? Yep, I saw them too, I said. Well, that would be really nice. So I walked Marcella home that night, across the slums into the rich part of town. She lived in a high-rise luxury apartment. I knew then that Marcella was full of money. I kissed her goodnight before she went into the building. We had made plans to see each other again at the gym. That night was a rough one. Kevin and Kelly got into a fight in our dorm over a bottle of cologne. The orderlies came in and cuffed the 2 of them up and took them to juvenile hall. I'd never seen anybody cuffed up or shackled before, and it looked like it was really painful. The room was pretty quiet with them gone. Joe was real quiet and kept to himself mostly. That night, Father Dennis brought up the mail. I got a letter from Beth, too, and it had $20 money ordered for me. I was real happy to hear from her. Joe also got a letter from Ohio State College. It was a Fulbright scholarship, and he was pretty happy, but he wasn't thrilled about moving to Ohio. He told Father Dennis that he was planning to hold off and see if the other recruiters from upstate would make him an offer. I think he knew that they would, especially after his performance tonight in the court. Joe assembled about 10 or 15 of his friends together and told them what had happened to me. They got together and went on a march through the neighborhood. There they are, he pointed to a group of gangsters in red, and the basketball players chased after them. The gang members saw that they were outnumbered and scattered. The players found a few of them hiding in a small doorway to an office building. They surrounded them. Joe spoke. You little thieving punks. Better not rob anyone else around here. We're real tired of you punks slinging your drugs and bullying people around here. Let this be a warning to you, because next time we're not going to be so nice. He spoke with authority, and he towered over the crowd. With that being said, he added, as for the money you took from the little white boy yesterday, you better give it back to him. Joe knew that I'd never see any of that money again. He knew that they had already plundered it away on drugs and alcohol. So I didn't see Marcella again for about a week. I had bought the bike at the store, and I had been circling around her block, in cases I'd see her, but she was nowhere to be found. I was happy to have a bike. I rode everywhere in the city, jumping the curbs, bunny hopping, even found a wooden plank and made a jump out of it. So Guido and Danny moved into my room. It was now Joe being the oldest, and me, then Guido, and Darius, who were both younger than me. Guido and I became good friends. I put him on the same exercise regimen as Kevin and Kelly put me on, and I sparred with him just about every day. We never heard from Kevin and Kelly again. Joe was super good at basketball. He started receiving letters from all over the country asking to play ball. He got one from upstate in Buffalo, and it was followed by the same recruiters we saw that day at the scrimmage. They talked him into signing a contract with him. They also bought him a brand new car. It was a little Mazda. It was funny to see him squeeze into that little car. You could see the little car lean to the side with him in it. I'm surprised the seat went back far enough to get him in there. The neighborhood was getting a lot worse. It seemed like there was a flood of drive-by shootings, and innocent people were being hurt, even killed every day. It was bad enough that I was one of the only white kids in the neighborhood, and that I had to watch out for gangsters in red, but now it seemed to be an all-out war between the gangs that wore red and those that wore blue. Now I had to watch out for stray bullets on top of it all, because the shootings were regular. They were just about every day. One morning, I stepped outside. I was planning to ride over to the Y for some boxing when I saw Joe getting into his car. Just then, a big brown Cadillac came screeching around the corner by Joe's car. He never saw it coming, but I did. I saw the guy's face, and I remembered his eyes and the tattoo on his face when he rolled down the window, and I saw the gun barrel come out and the flash of fire as the bullet sprayed into Joe's car, splattering Joe's brains all over the inside of that Mazda. There was nothing I could do. I hit the deck, worried about stray bullets. I knew they had gotten Joe, and I knew there was nothing I could do. I was really scared. I must have stayed on the ground for at least an hour, because when I looked up, I saw that the police were putting Joe on a gurney and putting him inside an ambulance. The gurney was taken, and Joe's face was covered, so I knew that he was gone. The police drug their homicide tape around the car and up the block. They marked the areas where they found shell casings. To this day, that murder remains unsolved. But I knew the face of the killer and this blue bandana around his neck. So I got really scared after seeing that, and I hadn't felt so sad my whole life. Joe was like the only family I had. He was like my big brother. The funeral service was 4 days later after the police got done with their autopsy. I had never been to a funeral before, and Marcella came with me. She was real supportive. She knew what I was going through. A detective came to see me the day after the funeral. He asked me a number of questions. I got upset when he asked me if Joe was on drugs or if Joe was a gang member. They sent over a sketch artist, and they tried to draw a picture of the guy who shot Joe, but nothing he drew matched anything in the police records. So Joe's murder wound up as being a cold case file. I knew it was the rival gang of the guys in red who robbed me. I never could understand why they would target Joe. He had nothing to do with any of it. One day I got curious about the guys in red. I seen the guy I picked up off the ground that day hanging out on the corner. I remembered his name was Busy. I called over to him. Hey, Busy, let me holler at you for a minute. I don't know nothing about who got your money, white boy. I could tell he was kind of scared of me. It's not about that. It's about my roommate Joe. He got smoked outside the orphanage last week. I don't know nothing about that either. Why would the guys in blue shoot at him? He wasn't in any gang, and he didn't sell drugs. Okay, white boy. It's Oscar, I said. Just call me by my name, please. It's Oscar. Okay, Oscar. Now, there's some rumors going around. You see, some of my set tried to recruit Big Joe on a few different occasions, and Big Joe always refused. Rumor is the other side tried to recruit him too, and he told them no, like he was better than everyone else. Rumor has it that they thought Joe was an narc or a rat, and then he told on one of those niggas. So they put him on the green light list, which means he was green lighted. And sometimes big homies make new guys earn their way in the gang by smoking. I think the guy you saw pull the gun and shoot was a new recruit on the Crip side, and Joe was on their list as a snitch. But he wasn't a snitch. He was a good guy. He was my family. I started to cry, and I ran off. I couldn't believe what I heard. It made me really sad. I couldn't let any of the other kids see me cry because they would think I was weak. But I cried and I cried. I had to hide out in the bathroom stall several times just to get the tears out. Joe was like my big brother. I moved into Joe's closet and took his bed in the room. I was the oldest in the room now. I had to be strong and bring up Guido and Darius to be tough. So I had to set an example. And being a crybaby wasn't the way to set an example. I hid my sadness well. Busy and I started talking more, and he even started to go to the gym with me. I asked him, why are you in that gang? He said, because it's cool, he said. Them thugs is like my family. I ain't got much of a home life. Mom was out selling her body for drugs, and my pops is a smoking crack, and he's in and out of jail and prison so much I ain't got no home life. He says, have you ever smoked a J? Yes. I said, what? He has a doobie, a joint, smokes a lot. You mean, have I ever smoked drugs? No, I said. I never do drugs, they're stupid. I said. But deep down, I had my interest. Well, don't knock it till you try it, Joe said. Come on, don't be a chicken shit. He motioned for me to follow. We left the gym, and he sparked up the weed. It had a good smell to it. And Busy didn't seem to change that much after he smoked it. In fact, he looked happy. He passed it to me, and I puffed it to him. I coughed and choked, and he busted out laughing. I waited and said, I don't feel nothing. A few minutes later, it hit me. I felt light as air and happy as could be. I moved my hands past my face, and it felt like slow motion, like a movie. I also felt like I was a giant stone rolling forward. I said, what a rush. I liked smoking coffee the first time I smoked it. I couldn't wait to do it again. The rush of feeling like a giant stone rolling forward was pretty cool. Then it also made me laugh a lot, and I really like to laugh, even if it's laughing at something silly. So I began to hang around Busy a lot more. He always seemed to have an extra joint to smoke. I began to look at everybody to see if I could tell if there was any signs that they smoked. Weed was not legal, and some people never smoked it. I guess a lot of people never tried it because how could they have not smoked it after they tried it? It was fun, it tasted good, and it seemed to me like a cool thing to do. I saw Marcella at the gym, and she was diving. She was looking good. I hadn't been smoking, but I couldn't help but wonder if she'd ever smoked it. I decided that her being an Olympic star, she definitely did not ever smoke it, and she didn't approve of smoking, so I kept it to myself. I bought myself a nice shirt and a pair of pants with the money that I'd gotten from Beth. She was still faithful every year She would come see me before the school year, and we would go shopping for school supplies. She didn't have a lot of money, but I think the Catholic Church allotted her a small allowance for charitable deeds. I don't know how Beth knew, but she mentioned to me not to end up like most kids in my position. She told me not to be smoking pot and drinking alcohol. It's like she knew I was smoking, but I agreed and I told her I wouldn't. I felt bad for lying to her. She was like, she was always good to me, and I couldn't let her be disappointed with me. The school year started, and I was now in the ninth grade. I bought my candies and began my candy hustle again. By the end of the week, I had about $50. A number of my customers asked if I could get weed, and I never would have thought that these kids would want weeds. Some of them were on the football team, some of them were on the student council. So that Friday, I went to Busy and asked him to start supplying me with weed so that I could roll joints and sell them like candy. Do you even know how to roll a joint, Oscar? Said Busy. Nah, but it can't be that hard. Come with me, we're gonna go to my house and practice. So I followed Busy into this neighborhood. We come to an old rundown house. Some of the windows were boarded up. And there was a drunk man on the porch. Hey, Pop, said Busy. What are you doing hanging around with the white trash, Leonard? His dad said with a slur of his words. He was holding a bottle of Old English. Busy ushered me in as his pops grabbed him from there. He had a big afro. Ouch, Pops, what you doing? That's buddy, you're drunk again. My friend is white, but he's cool. He grew up here in the hood. So don't even trip, said Busy. We stepped over piles of laundry. There were empty beer cans littered all over the floor, ashtrays knocked over, trash piled up, dishes were piled up high in the sink. Some lady was sitting on the couch and she was smoking something out of a TV antenna. We got to Busy's room and it was like a whole other world. His room was clean. Everything was neatly placed. There were posters of NFL teams on the walls. He had several football trophies and a TV and a small couch, even the coolest table I ever saw. It was a coffee table that it lifted up and had hinges, and it could become like a TV dinner tray as well. It had a big storage area underneath it. The whole table lifted. It was perfect for what we used it for. The side of the storage area was the most, inside where the storage area was the most weed I'd ever seen in my whole life. Busy taught me how to roll joints that day. It took me a while because my joints always ended up fat in the middle. Call them bombers. I rolled up 50 joints and packed it into an empty cigarette pack. I was having a hard time fitting the last 10 of them in. Busy gave me a sandwich bag for the rest of them. I spent $30 for the 50 joints, and I priced them at $2 per joint. I thought that the candy business was good, but I couldn't believe once the word got around that I had joints for sale, I sold out by lunchtime every day. This became a ritual. I was making money hand over fist. I started to dress better, and the girls started to notice me. After a few weeks of my sales being so good, I began to buy larger amounts of weed, getting it cheaper than ever. The more you bought, the cheaper it was, just like the wholesale business. So the shootings became more frequent, and I noticed more gang violence in my neighborhood. I would meet Busy once a week at his house on Saturdays. Saturdays were quiet at his house. His mom was usually still out with the John, who was one of her regulars, and his dad was usually sleeping off Friday night's drunkenness. One day, I was leaving Busy's house. I had a pound of weed in my pocket when his mother pulled in a Jeep. Right behind the Jeep was a cop car, and it put on its red and blue lights. She jumped out of the passenger seat, and she ran into the house. And all of a sudden, there was gunfire. The driver of the Jeep began to fire at the police. Cops returned fire. As the Jeep took off, the Jeep went to the end of the block and crashed into a parked car on the side of the road. It was as if a ghost was driving. I found out later that the driver was holding Busy's mom hostage in the Jeep, and that after he shot at the cops, they shot him in the head. He lived just long enough to crash into the parked car at the end of the block. I knew that the news story on Channel 7 wasn't quite accurate. Busy's mom wasn't a hostage. She was a hooker, and the driver was one of her regular customers. Nobody knew why he shot at the police, but I found out later from Busy that the guy actually was a bank robber, and that's how he spent his money on drugs and prostitution. Yet at that time, crack cocaine was prevalent in the streets. I continued to make money every day that year at the school. These kids were smokers, and it turned out that they usually always wanted to buy candies after they smoked. The police released Joe's Mazda to the orphanage after several weeks, and they met with Father Dennis, and they was deciding on what they were going to do with it. It was decided that it would go to me because I was now almost 16, and I was the closest one to Joe. I spent several hours cleaning up the car. It was difficult to get the blood out, but I finally did. The deep clean was some really good detergent I got from the laundry room. The car was pretty nice. It needed a new window, and one of those seats was discolored from the detergent. I planned to get it and replace them. I had plenty of money stashed away, but I needed a way to show some kind of income, so I took a part-time job at the pizzeria as a cook. I liked working for the Italians. They had a lot of class and respect. They were very connected to the mob, so it seemed. My boss, his name was Ken Irwin. He worked directly under the Manzanares, who owned the pizzeria. He was the only half-breed to ever become a made man, as they call it. And it was only because he married Joe Manzanares' daughter, and he had a Sicilian mother. These guys treated me like family. They fed me well. They let me choose my hours. They gave me bonus bucks. The bonus bucks were usually earned by delivering messages to some of the people they extorted around town. Sometimes I would earn money by breaking out car windows or slashing car tires. Real easy stuff. Always sent a message, whether it be a direct message or an indirect message, like flattened tires. One night, I slashed the tires on this black stretch limo. Ken said it would be an easy hit. I didn't know that the owners were inside the car because the windows were tinted black. I remember the back door opening and said, "Hey, you little bastard!" Then I looked back and rode away on my bike, just in time for this Molotov cocktail to explode. Fireball blazed behind me. I never rode so fast on my bike in my life. When I got back to the pizzeria, I told Kenny my story, and he almost died laughing. Here I was, a young man, about to lost my life, and Ken was laughing like it was water balloon or something. Well, kids, sometimes things just don't go as planned. Get used to it. That's all he said. Ken would offer me a beer or two after work. Usually I never took him up on that offer, though, even because I didn't like the way beer tasted. And I was already ashamed of my smoking because Beth asked me not to do it. I bought a new seat and a window for the Mazda. Father Dennis kept the keys so that I wouldn't drive without a license. I had a locksmith come over and make me a set. I knew Father Dennis would be busy that day at the confessional booth. I continued to get good grades in school. I was out to prove that I could smoke pot every day and still get good grades. I maintained A's and B's and the orphanage promised to buy my insurance and pay for my driver's license if I kept my grades up. That was a good deal. So Marcella was for money. She knew that I started to carry money on me a lot. "Oscar, do you remember when we met? Why do you think anything is different now? You can't go around flashing your money," she said protectively. So she took me over to the bank and she taught me how to write a check. I deposited $500 into the Wells Fargo bank, and I even filled out a direct deposit form for the pizzeria. Marcella started to attend church with me. We started to fall deeply in love. She was a year older than me, and she was in high school. Her dad bought her a brand new Volkswagen car. It was a new Volkswagen Bug. It had a Porsche engine. She let me drive it, and that car was super fast. I loved driving it. It was especially fun because it was a stick shift, just like my car. So I took a couple sharp turns in her car, and I guess I was going too fast. I lost control. and I hit a fence post and dented her brand new Volkswagen. She was mad as a hornet. I told you to slow down around corners. You really scared me, she said. It was the first time she'd ever yelled at me. What am I going to tell my father? That I was racing around and crashed? Or that I let you drive my car without a license? I'm taking you home now, Oscar. I've got to figure out how to explain the accident. She snapped. I'm sorry, my foot slipped on the pedal, I lied. More like your foot was filled with lead. Leadfoot Oscar, she called me for the next month, till finally she got over it. But I don't know what she told her dad, but I knew her dad wouldn't stay mad at her too long. She was pretty charming when she wanted to be, and I'm sure her charm worked on him too. We drove past the stretch limo one day, that same stretch limo, and Marcella was taking me out for lunch, and we took a look over at the stretch limo, and it was charred black. The black limo was charred. It was the windows were all busted out. The inside of the car, you could see that it looked as if a car bomb had exploded. And it turns out that's exactly what happened. Marcella didn't know about my bonus bucks. Some things you just don't discuss with your loved ones. I couldn't help but wonder if the people lived or died in that car. From the looks at it, there were no survivors. It was almost summertime, and Marcella invited me to go to Florida with her family for spring break. I made arrangements with Ken by bringing Guido over to apply at the beach trip. He was 15 now, well, almost 15, but he looked older than he was. I told Ken my plans for spring break and that I needed time off. So I brought somebody to cover for me. So I knew he wouldn't refuse me. You know, kid, you're a pretty good helper, and you're very thoughtful. Here's what I'm going to do for you. You being so thoughtful and all, I'm going to give you a vacation bonus of $400. That's 2 weeks of pay. You get the next 2 weeks off too, and when you get back, I'm making you assistant manager. Now go have some fun, and remember to keep your pecker in your pants. That's the last thing you need is little Oscars running around. And from what I hear, Florida is one big orgy during the spring. Remember what I told you, keep your pecker in your pants. That was the kind of advice I got from Ken. He was always full of advice. Usually it was good advice, but sometimes his advice was the kind that didn't get a guy into trouble. We took a limo to the airport with Marcella's family. She had a younger sister, about 12, and an 8-year-old brother named Joe. He was a cool little kid. He brought a bunch of video games with him and a football. They had about 7 suitcases full, and I only had one little small bag at the airport when we checked into the airport terminal. I had never flown in a plane before, and I was super excited. I was pretty scared too, especially when the stewardess showed up and told us what to do in case of an emergency. My heart was beating like a drum when the huge plane finally taxied to the airport and got to the runway. Don't worry, Oscar, planes are safer than cars, she said. I loved the feeling when the plane accelerated. I could feel the G-force pull me back into the seat. I heard a big scraping sound as the plane lifted off the ground. I thought the tail end scraped the ground. Once we were in the air, I looked out the window. As we climbed, the streets became like paths. The people in cars became little like little ants moving around. Then all you could see below was the rivers and the stream. It looked like a lot of farms. So we rose above the clouds. It was like a dream. I couldn't believe I was flying. That was one of the best days of my life. And we're gonna end it right there for today. Thanks for joining me for this little podcast, and hopefully it turns out good. We'll see you next time. Well, maybe.